Africa is not just about hunger, famine, and starvation.
We are changing, we are innovating,
and we are growing much faster than any other part of the world.
New Thinking Africa
talks to business leaders in different industries. We get to listen to their take on what they envision the future
of Africa to be like and what they're doing to attain that future.
My name is Mugambe Daniel, Business Development Manager, Marketing Investments Limited.
My name is Wakabi, Surveyor, Marketing Investments Limited.
All right, so what's the construction industry like in Africa?
To give you a background, we should start with how it used to be back in the day. In African traditional society, we used to have very simple structures. No matter where you went, they used to have huts. But basically cow dung, wattle, and grass. You didn't need tradesmen. You yourself could put up this house in 2 days or less than a week. If you had someone, the better. There were few tradesmen, and the construction materials were cheap and easily accessible compared to how it is today.
If you are to take a look at the developed countries, for example, the African developed countries like South Africa and the like, they have transitioned faster into using more materials, for example, structural steel and concrete, whereas in Uganda, well, where it's a case in point, we find that it took a little bit of time, but currently most of the materials are actually on the market. The structural steel is on the market, people are using concrete, the brickwork, the blockwork, and just to go deeper, in Uganda, if you wanted to put up your house right now, you'll need all the permissions from the authorities, regardless whether you're in Gulu or Kampala or Kitgum. Now the procedure that you have to take, a client has to approach a professional, usually it's an architect, where when they sit with them, they have an idea. If they don't have an idea, the architect ushers them into that idea, and they generate something, either on a laptop, but others use pen and paper, the traditional architects. So from this, they develop a concept for a house or an apartment or a commercial building, and from there, depending on the levels, if it's a bungalow, the architect doesn't usually need a structural engineer's input, but if it's going one level up and more, the structural engineer will come into place because he has to design for the structural elements of the building. And by structural elements, we mean the beams, the columns, because these help the structure to be firm and stand for a very long time. And from that step is where now you find that we need other construction professionals like the quantity surveyor. And mainly what the quantity surveyor does is to extract quantities as developed by the architect and the structural engineer and come up with a cost. Most clients have not really adopted this because sometimes they think they know how much they need to spend on their house, not until they actually start constructing and they realize the money they had saved is not actually enough.
To expand on this, the quantity surveyor basically is the person who deals with cost. On a project, on any given project, there are 3 core items that someone should look at: cost, time, and quality. So, when a client approaches a profession, as it is now today, they want a quality structure, right? They want work to be done and at a certain cost. So what a quantity surveyor would basically do is plan and work on cost of a structure. So as it is today, quantity surveying is basically a new policy, and it's a new idea that people have not taken up. On most government projects, they have a system. Before anything goes on, there's tendering and bidding. Quantity survey, that's where quantity surveyor comes in. Bills of quantities, he works on bills of quantities that basically entail different items on the structure and how much they're going to cost. and in the end, you have a general summary showing you that you're going to spend this much on a project. That is something that private clients are yet to pick up on. In our experience as contractors and quantity surveyors, we've realized that private clients, don't like consulting professions. They tend to think that we're expensive and that we are not needed on projects, which is not right. So a client comes to you in the initial stages, you give them cost, and when they look at the figures, they get scared. Yet that is the actual cost of what the building is going to consume. Then they come back later when a fundi has messed up their building and they are crying and they're saying they're going to spend more money, but you advise them initially. And that's where the challenge is.
But now, the good thing from the construction industry and the growth, authorities like KCCA have taken it up because of because of what is in place. They realize that most structures actually end up collapsing because professionals are not used right from the onset. So if you look at KCC and Wakiso, they have intensified the whole process of approval planning. So without the land surveyor's input, because where the land surveyor comes in, usually is actually the first point of contact after the client has identified an architect. So the architect looks for a land surveyor who goes to the site, extracts the plot boundaries, and also finds out if the land has any encumbrances or not. From this is where the architect now will come up with a concept and place it exactly on that plot of land. And from there you find the structure engineer coming in place, depending on the type of structure, the quantity surveyor. Then all these documents are submitted to the authorities for approval. And this has been intensified of late, and it will actually help clients appreciate where the professionals are coming from. Because now, in KCCA, it's a prerequisite. You cannot construct without approval. Wakisa has also done the same. Entebbe is also doing the same. So I believe clients should really engage the professionals more if they want their buildings to last, but also if they want to build something that is in the plan of the city.
In summary, the construction industry in Uganda or Africa has taken steps towards growth. We have adopted more technologies. We have adopted the idea of using professionals. We have adopted systems that are set in place by our authorities. We have adopted many other materials that are predominantly not here, but are more cheap and more effective. So, in general, there are good signs of development and there are good signs of a good future to come.
What do you envision the future of African construction to be like?
African construction is taking very good steps. You might call them baby steps, because in the Western world, if you had to look at where they have reached with system with different technologies, for example, the artificial intelligence and the green robotics, here in Africa we have started more or less a bit behind, because we have adopted the BIM, that's the building information modeling, it makes it easy to design a house, because you have the architectural design, the structural design, the quantity surveying software for the builds of quantities, and the M&D. The M&D basically is the mechanical and electrical software. So all these are actually embedded into one system in a nutshell, and you generate all the drawings that you need and all the costs. So this reduces on the time that you have to spend in the whole design of a project, but also it increases productivity and efficiency. And then also there's the prefabricated materials that are now being used, for example, even in Uganda, as you have seen in the Western world, prefabricated steel most of the warehouses that you see right now in Kampala or wherever you travel take about 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
So it, as we've seen in China, where they put up that hospital in
Wuhan.
6 days,
Yeah,
1 week.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was prefabricated systems,
Yes.
materials that could easily be accessible. Also, it is easier to put up a structure that way. It is fast. It saves on manpower, saves on time, saves on cost. As much as we have not adopted it here, there are sites of us adopting it. In industrial area in Uganda, we have companies that do sandwich boards that offices and buildings are taking up.
And they also import the polyvinyl material, that's the PVC, that you can also use for walling instead of doing a very thick wall of brickwork and mortar.
Yeah.
And also there is the aluminium partitioning. And most of these materials are actually helping in the whole biodiversity and also the environment, because now we're trying to use all these materials that are actually user-friendly.
Yeah, and some of the materials are recycled. Can find buildings having bottles, having
Plastics covering almost the entire walling.
Yeah, tires, and someone has put up a structure and it has rubber and tires that has been recycled, and that's also a building.
So you basically the industry is actually, there's so much room for development, and it's actually going to be very interesting for the future, because if you look at it from this perspective, we spend about the construction industry alone contributes to almost 30% of gas emission, and which is affecting the climate change. And the only way you can actually reduce on that as the construction industry is trying to adopt materials that are user-friendly. There is also technology that is coming up like 3D printing. If you try to check on the internet, NASA came up with a contest whereby they gave participants 12 hours to come up with a house. So some of the participants came up with these 3D printers. All the designs were made, and through 3D printing, they generated a house, basically houses, and they were tested.
Yeah, in 12 hours.
In 12 hours.
The house was, you could live in it and be happy with that. And this contest was for houses that were going to be put up in space for people who want to live on Mars and whatnot in the future. So basically, aside from materials and technology that's putting up structures, also on the professional side of us, professionals in the construction industry have different technologies that are aiding us in coming up with costs, coming up with structures, coming up with designs and whatnot. Every year in quantity surveying, there's a costing software that is released, that is aiding you to move things faster and whatnot.
Because there are times where a client would ask for a bills of quantity and it will take about 3 weeks. But with the software now, you can actually generate it within 3 to 5 days.
Or even less than that.
And also, we have been having challenges of construction projects drag for about 2 years or 3 years, whereas in the Western world, the whole idea of green robotics is a human being can only do so much. So you find that they are bringing in robots which don't have to actually sleep, so they take up some of this manpower issue that we're facing on skyscraper buildings, and when you're trying to do an estate and wide range facilities. So these robotics actually save on manpower and also improve productivity, but also sometimes you find that cost-wise you actually save, because when you're saving on time, also the cost is also mitigated in a way. For example, in the mining industry, there are already robots that are aiding in depth analysis. So I believe the construction industry can also borrow a leaf and come up with robots that aid in construction building, and also it helps in higher productivity.
And this is by a company called Fondi Boots. It's a Ugandan company, and in Uganda they currently do skills development and curriculum development for kids and young adults out there. So eventually, I'm guessing they would do robots that would aid construction and make and the industry alike.
So how is climate change affecting your industry?
Well, as you all know, climate change has been there for some time, and the construction industry is not any different. We have been part of the biggest contributors to degradation of the environment, and this is also backed up by some statistics. Where I find that the World Economic Forum released a report where they say that 30% of the global greenhouse gas emissions are attributed to the facilities that are put up by the construction industry. So that goes ahead to show you that we have to reinvent ourselves in the materials we use, but also trying to come up with structures that are eco-friendly.
Yeah.
So this has also been done. If we can just give an example of bricks. Bricks, it takes a whole long process to just burn bricks and make them to the required strength that you can put them up for walling. So what happens is most of the developed world has come up with new materials. For example, the polyvinyl, that's the PVC, sandwich panels, and aluminium panels, and also the steel fabricated materials to do the walling. Because these, whereas also they have some effect on the environment, it's not as much as someone having their brick place and they're burning bricks, and because as you burn the bricks, you're emitting gas into the air. You're forced to reclaim a swamp to do clay bricks. Yes. You're forced to degrade the soil because you're not going to actually plant anything after the soil has been degraded by clay bricks.
As much as there's a bit of degradation, this also helps to emphasize recycling, because some of these boards and prefabs are made from things like rubber and things like plastics that have been thrown away. Someone throws away a bottle and people recycle it and put it in a wall. So, as much as yes, there's a bit of wood and trees are being cut down, on the same hand, there is plastics and there's emphasis for recycling. So that also helps on reduction of depletion of natural resources that we see going on in our communities. There's a lot of, for example, just to make cement, someone has to cut down a whole hill to get limestone, which is not there for this case of prefabs. So, in a way, where construction as an industry has tried to improve on, has tried to do away with some of the materials that are gotten from the natural resources and getting the artificial materials in there.
If you are to scale it down now, like for the Ugandan industry, it will take some time because many of the houses that we build are made of brick and mortar. So it will take some more time because first and foremost, the affordability of some of these materials is not friendly for most of the people in Uganda or in these lower developed countries.
And the technology
also. Though if you look at materials like iron sheets, some of the big players like Uganda Bati Roofings have tried to carbon the emission of the emission and also radiation by adding this zinc coating on most of their most of their sheets. So you find that as the sun hits this mabati in people's homes, it doesn't actually wear off or release that emission as compared to the asbestos that people used back in the day. If you looked at all the olden churches and all the old structures that we visit all over Uganda.
And asbestos is poisonous. In many homes you find that people collect rainwater and they drink this water. So people used to drink this rainwater, but they didn't know that they were taking poisonous asbestos.
And they're also using pipes, for example, the pipes for the rainwater system. But now we have if you look at most of the houses or everywhere you go you find that all the rainwater material is now polyvinyl. So it's very eco-friendly and it's good for the environment.
Yeah, and also I guess the authorities have tried to emphasize on plant settlement.
Yes.
Yes. So if we plan our estates and have people organized in communities, it also curbs on environmental depletion. And you find in our villages people are constructing in forests, using those forests, the trees, to make firewood and run businesses and keep themselves warm. So in urban settlements, you find that the estates, people plan and settle in a community, and that also curbs on that unplanned settlement where people are just building anywhere
without any regulations.
Without
And
any
also,
regulations.
in conjunction with this, KCCA and NEMA and other authorities in the nation are doing their best to curb down on how people utilize the environment. For example, a commercial building coming up, or a warehouse or a factory, before they can actually go ahead with approving their plans, they have to bring an environmentalist on board who has to do the environmental impact assessment report, which will also capture some of these areas of what materials they're going to use, how the structure is going to be used, and when some of these things are enforced, you find that also climate change is also being affected in a positive way, and we are trying to save the future and also the environment for a better tomorrow.
And any last words?
Well, as you can see in our previous in our discussion today, we have seen that the construction industry has come from a long way, and for sectors like the IT industry, where technologies are developed every day, the construction industry has been lagging behind, because for about 30 years we have been having almost the same technologies. It's only now in this new information age and the revolutionizing of technology that the construction industry has now appreciated the whole technology buzz, and it's a good thing for us because we have realized that we can't remain behind. And also, as MarkTech trying to be the leading player, we have adopted some of these technologies now, like the building information modeling is something that we are adopting for all our clients. And also with time, we believe that as the company keeps growing, we can also adopt things like 3D printing and artificial intelligence, and all these will help develop the construction industry, but also keep the environment user-friendly and also for the development of everyone. And you can also, as MarkTech, you can also reach us at Chireka, Isabella Plaza, Suite 30, opposite Shell Chireka. My name is Mugambe Daniel.
My name is Wakabi Samuel. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channels and turn on your notifications.
Thanks for watching.